Hello friends, bienvenidos. My name is Jen, aka Jen Kahlo on social media, your local witchy friend and intuitive guide through the occult. As always, my lovely husband and co-host is David, aka Premier Pulls on social media.
Hi everyone. On today's episode, Jen explains Mercury Retrograde and relationships.
Welcome to the show. Grab a chair, make yourself at home. Jen's got stories to share, you'll never feel alone.
Happy 60th episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
The big 6-0, and what a way to start it with some Mercury Retrograde, huh?
Yeah.
I mentioned in last week's episode, I was like, I wish you would have never introduced me to Mercury Retrograde, because now that's all I think about every time it comes up. I'm like, oh shit, what's going to go wrong?
Yes. Well, if you want a general overview on Mercury Retrograde, check out episode 12, because today we will be focusing specifically on relationships. Again, or I guess to clarify, we'll be focusing a little more on romantic relationships, but this also applies to your platonic relationships.
Yeah. Really quick though, I think you should give a TLDR of what Mercury Retrograde is, just because, first of all, I feel like it's so popular. Maybe it's one of those things, and I know there's a scientific name for it, where once you know of something, you feel like you see it everywhere. But
Confirmation bias.
Yes, but there's another more scientific name to it. But I hear it and see it on my feed. I see it all over the place. I think it's definitely entered the pop culture vernacular. So why don't you just tell us really quickly what it is and then what can happen during Mercury Retrograde?
Yeah, so the summary is retrograde is the optical illusion where a planet looks like it's moving backwards. That's the scientific definition. But in astrology, the planet actually does move backwards in terms of degrees. It moves backwards in a sign, sometimes even two signs, just depending on where retrograde starts and ends. But when something is in retrograde, it basically means that whatever that planet controls is not working efficiently. Mercury is the planet of communication and also technology, but because it's the closest to the sun, we get it the most often. So we get Mercury retrogrades about 3 to 4 times a year, which is why I feel like people fixate on it so much, because
it just happens so much, right?
It happens a lot. Yeah. So, communication, technology can go sideways, emails can get lost, systems can go down, but also people can, argue a lot more. So,
and then I love your analogy, and I've had, my mom specifically, I love how she put it. Mercury retrograde, and obviously if you believe in Mercury retrograde causing issues, that in itself is not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's a neutral thing. It's kind of how you want to prepare for it, right? So the great example that you gave is Mercury retrograde is like rain, right? Rain in itself is not good or bad. It's up to you if when you go outside you want to get wet. If you want to get wet or are not ready, you're going to get wet. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be prepared, you'll take an umbrella. Correct?
Exactly. Yep. Umbrella, rain boots. Yeah. How prepared do you want to be? And I think it also always depends where the retrograde is happening in your chart. It's always going to affect you differently, but either way, it's coming. We can't stop it. And we just got to roll with the punches. It's time to be flexible.
Yeah.
But specifically in terms of with relationships, Mercury retrograde is infamous for people arguing, breaking up, or exes rising from the dead and into your DMs.
Yes. I know in our previous episodes with the wonderful Mel, we talked about that, right?
Yep.
And that kind of took a fun little twist and turn, because I liked how you put it. You're an ex could be coming into your life, so be ready for however you want to handle it, whether you want to give them the time of day or not. Just be ready that somebody from your past could come into your life, but also you could be that someone who goes into somebody's life. And I know we always like to think ourselves as the protagonist. It's hard to take that perspective of am I the one who's causing the problem? It's that meme, am I the drama?
Yep.
But sometimes we are, right? And that's why, and this is getting very philosophical, but this might be the episode for it. When we think of good and evil and there's this side that's right and this side that's not right. Like, there's just so many nuances. So this is a shout out, but I do love how you preface that, like, yes, Mercury retrograde, like, people can be assholes to you, but you're not immune from being the asshole yourself.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, people are always like, watch out for your ex. It's like, what if you are that ex? Because Mercury will make like things pop up in your brain. You'll reflect on the past, you'll reflect on unresolved issues, and it's sort of like that meme, like everything reminds me of him or her. Yeah. You might get in your feels and be like, I should call them back, I should hit them up. You know, whether or not you do it, that's up to you.
Loneliness is a bitch, though. I will say, I have never like slid back into like an ex's DMs, but it is always like the "you up" text, like, you know, you're sitting there by yourself, you're like, I wonder what this person's doing. Like, the human mind is doesn't want to be by itself.
Honestly, being married, I feel like I caught the last chopper out of none. Like, thank goodness I do not want to be single in the age of like AI and divisive politics and stuff.
To me too, it's also like, single in this economy.
That like, too, yeah. But I kind of had Mercury retrograde materialize for me in a funny way. So an ex came into my DM, but not in the traditional way. So my friend was just looking at memes, as you do, and like sent me a funny reel, a funny video. And I watched it and I was like, oh my God, what? And then it was a picture of someone that I spoke to in the past. I haven't talked to him in 11 years. And I was like, what? And I saw that the reel had like millions of views. So he just happened to go viral. And I told my friend, I was like, this is weird, but, and my friend was like, that's crazy. So technically an ex came into my DM, but like unintentionally.
Yeah, Mercury retrograde made them found the way, huh?
But I mean, when I saw his page, I'm like, everything happens for a reason. Glad I was not part of that journey 11 years ago.
Yeah. But we're talking relationships and specifically communication this episode. So, you know, kind of tell us about that.
Yeah. So I feel like Mercury retrograde is really the time to roll with the punches and pick and choose your battles. But let me tell you when you need to start like sort of keeping an eye out for things. So there is something called shadow period in retrograde. Think of it like an airplane. Like, you don't just go up into the air all at once. You need to slowly pick up velocity and get up into the air, and then slowly like ramp down and land.
Descend.
Yeah, descend. So that's like shadow period. So pre and post shadow period, the pre-shadow period is when you're ramping up to take off. So the pre-shadow period started on the 7th. So we're ramping up. So you'll get a little bit of Mercury retrograde tomfoolery right now. But when it's finally going to be like full retrograde and we're fully in the air is going to be November 25th. And we will be there until December 15th. And then December 15th until January 2nd is the post, when we're finally getting out of Mercury retrograde tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with pre and post shadow period, it spans around like 2 months, but the more like true retrograde is maybe about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so walk us through, what are some of the things you should do in each of those steps? So as you're ramping up, would you say what? Delete contacts? Or, well, okay. Okay, here's a funny thing I just thought about. You talk about how like it's communication and technology. It'd be a good time to like make sure that like you're not pocket dialing someone or like, you know, sending that like, whoops, wrong person text message, because like this is the time that would happen, right?
I mean, honestly, yeah, I've never thought about that, but that's actually a really great suggestion. Like when it's pre-shadow period, you might, maybe
clean up your
contacts, delete like old photos. Like, yeah, you could do that.
Unfollow people on socials that you're kind of done with.
Yeah, that's actually a really good suggestion. Yeah, that's great things to do during like pre-shadow. The pre.
Okay, and what about when we're in the storm of it, the eye of the storm, kind of weathering it? What do we do? Well,
if you are in a relationship and y'all are bickering, or like, maybe there's a relationship that you thought had laid to rest, but you want to bring it up, or the other person brings it up, just like roll with the punches and realize that it's just Mercury triggering everybody. But I would really say, like, the theme is, pick and choose your battles. But if after specifically this retrograde, January 2nd, if the issue persists past January 2nd, you have a real problem. Then you really should address it. But for now, just kind of give yourself and the other person grace and roll with the punches.
And also kind of like specifically with the exes, right? Like during the height of the Mercury retrograde, put a pin in it maybe and say, like, do I really have feelings for this person? Do I really want to explore this? Or like, is it just a retrograde? So maybe if you are sliding into your ex's DMs or they're sliding into your DMs, say, hit me up next month and see how you feel.
Well, I don't, there's no hard and fast rule. Everyone's situation is different. So I would say, like, if someone slides into your DMs, consider if you even want to entertain it. And if you do, if you're like, you know what, I really do miss this person, I think that this could work out, then maybe don't like fully pledge yourself to be in a relationship. Maybe just like kind of go slow. And then if after January 2nd, you still have like intense feelings for this person and you could see yourself in a relationship with them, then yeah, maybe it is a sign you two should get back together. But
and we don't want to like throw the book out and say don't ever do it, or like they're an ex for a reason, because we actually do know some, well, I can think of at least 2 couples that we know that they didn't work out at the beginning, but now they're super happy, right? So like there's always that gateway into letting things happen. And I know we've mentioned this in the past, but so much of it is timing, right? It's not even like this person's wrong, this person's wrong. It's just like you're in such different places in your life that it just might not be the moment for that relationship at that time. But with time, once you've maybe worked through some personal issues, or it could literally just timing, right? Somebody who's maybe finishing up school or having a new career or has to move, like, it's really simple to say, like, well, choose love, but like, no, pragmatically, like, people have to make really, really important life decisions. So if you're in that scenario and you kind of find yourself thinking about your ex and it wasn't a bad breakup and it was just more of the timing, like, these are sometimes to maybe consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking into the past is not always negative. We just like to be spicy, and it's the content that gets the most clicks to be like, that shitty ex is coming back, but like, it's not always like that. Sometimes, you do need to like reflect on the past to make amends and move forward, or even just for closure. But I would say don't make any like concrete solid plans during a retrograde.
Don't set a wedding date.
Don't set labels. Like, just be in the talking phase, just take it slow. And whether it's like to get back together or even to break up, like, I would not recommend any permanent moves until January.
We've talked about this in the past, as far as like exes in your life, but I don't think I've ever asked, and this is appropriate, is Mercury retrograde a good time to start dating?
I would say no, just because communication is not the best. So something I could see during Mercury retrograde is like someone maybe making promises they can't keep, or you forgetting to like screen for like deal breakers. Not that you're gonna have like a checklist, but
some people do.
Some people do, or like, it's like, oh crap, I'm in too deep with this person and I forgot to ask like this one important thing, So I would say it's not a good time to like start dating, but if you already are dating, just, take it with a grain of salt. No
first dates on Mercury retrograde.
Unless you're just trying to like have fun again.
Unless you're a Sagittarius.
If you're looking to like date to marry, maybe take a break and just focus on you during retrograde. But if you're dating just to date and have fun, I mean, don't let it stop you, but just be careful.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. What else as far as relationships? And right now we're talking romantic, but I think just as important as like romantic, I think family relationships are important, but I think those dynamics are just, that could be a whole nother topic, right? Because we're getting into way too many intricacies. But what about platonic relationships, your friends, your chosen family?
Yeah, friends can have arguments and falling out too. Or if you've been like, man, this person is like annoying me, I really need to like set a boundary with them. Of course, if it's something like egregious, don't wait for January, but I would say if it's something not as critical, maybe wait to see like, am I just being like ultra sensitive right now? Is it a big deal? I would say any like serious conversations or like cutting ties or even like making amends, like, yeah, just don't do anything serious, platonic or romantic until January. That's like my biggest takeaway. And we have relationships everywhere. We have acquaintances, we have coworkers, we have family. So for example, for me, Mercury retrograde is going to affect my third house of communication and like my literal immediate vicinity. So I could see that I might get more sensitive, or more people might get more sensitive with me in my everyday life, and work is part of that. So for any coworkers listening to this, be patient with me and I'll be patient with you, because it's just the season of Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, for sure.
I could see it even with like neighbors, like if the neighbors do something that, I don't know, they've never done before and I immediately get like triggered, I might be inclined to like want to tell them like, hey, but in the spirit of Mercury retrograde, it's like wait until January. If it is still a problem in January, that's a good time to be like, hey neighbor, what's going on with this bullshit?
Especially January, because we'll talk about it as it comes, but kind of cleansing in New Year. So this Mercury retrograde is actually like a good one for like get through the bullshit basically, and then come the new year you can address it.
2025 will be your year.
I feel like I say that every year.
I know, we all do. Claiming it in 2023, claiming 2024. I know, right? Absolutely. Yeah, so that's what I think. In your personal life, have you been noticing any like people maybe a little more sensitive, a little more tomfoolery? Have any exes slid in your DMs?
No exes sliding in my DMs. No, I think, I always forget. I only know about, I was joking earlier that I feel like it's everywhere, but I never know when Mercury retrograde is until you remind me. So I also am a big proponent of like confirmation bias. Like if you do think things are gonna go wrong, they might go wrong. I do also subscribe to the idea of like be prepared, like you said, but also, ignorance is bliss. Had I not known about Mercury retrograde, I would have just been like, oh, this was just like a disagreement. I don't think so. I don't prepare it, but I think I'm really good in my communication, and I don't practice the like passive aggressiveness or like not being direct with my words. I pretty much, if I'm telling you something, that's kind of what I feel. There's no agenda behind it. And Mercury retrograde or not, like if you come at people with the truth and come at them straight, you don't really leave too much room for misinterpretation. Now, they might take it a certain way, or I might take it a certain way. There are times where I do feel like I don't like how that person said that, or I don't agree with it, and I can get in my feels. But to me, it's a little more interesting with how I interpret communication or moods. Tangent a little bit, but like I can tell sometimes like physiologically something's off, whether it's like I'm tired. As I get older, like a lot of guys, like they kind of start through the cycle of like maybe their testosterone might be a little bit lower, or like you start getting irritable. There are times where I'm like irrationally irritable, and I'm like, this is annoying me way more than it should or it needs to. Which I feel very fortunate that I can recognize that, because I know some people could like spiral and not even think about that. But for me, I take like personal inventory of like my feelings, of my communication, of my mood. And there have been times where I was like, I have literal no explanation why I'm so upset or so irate, that it must be something else. So I just chalk it up to like, let me just get through today, and if I feel the same tomorrow, then I can address it. But yeah, no, there's been times where I've totally been like, this makes zero sense to be upset over. Especially the being like irritated. it doesn't happen a lot, but there are times where I just like feel very, very, very irritated. I'm like, oh, I bet you my hormone levels are all over the place, or I'm tired, or like even dehydrated. I mean, there's so many little different things, right? And but for me, what I like about that, my body knows to identify that. It knows like this is not normal. Don't worry about it. It's not that serious.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's good that you have that awareness, because for you specifically, this retrograde is going to be affecting your first house and your 12th house, because it is going backwards. So it's going to affect both those areas. So it's going to affect you and like your whole sense of self, as well as your mental health. So you might get a little more irritable. So just, I would say for you specifically, just be patient with yourselves and people around you.
Yeah.
And if we're out of whack in our homeostasis, we haven't eaten, we haven't drank water, like on top of all the Mercury retrograde tomfoolery, you're just not setting yourself up for success. So I would say, like, if you're a person that like gets irritable when your blood sugar is low or something like that, like make sure that you don't wait until your fridge is like completely empty to go grocery shopping, or like make sure you carry a snack and you take inventory of like what you're taking with you before you head out the door.
Kind of like that shadow work episode we talked about, right? Just all the little shit that you never want to do but you have to do. We had an example this morning. We went to breakfast and the food wasn't great. We were already kind of tired and we're like, ugh. And then you yourself said, I kind of fucked up because yesterday I knew I was going to be in this predicament. I knew I should have ordered some like food or gone grocery shopping or even DoorDash. You did not like what you ordered, or you were still kind of hungry. And like, even when the food came out, we're like, we should switch plates. And it was just kind of like a shitty situation. And it's not the end of the world. These are very champagne problems, but I think that's a good allegory to like Mercury retrograde, right? It's not really the big things, right? Like nothing major is going to happen, but like those little things that happen in your life that can kind of throw you off whack. I know specifically we're talking about communication, but in that example, you even yourself had the solution to not find yourself in this predicament. But for whatever reason, you're like, fuck it. That's future me problem. Yeah. I do that a lot too. Oh my God. I'm like, fucking future David will deal with that issue. I'm chilling right now.
And then future David's like, fuck.
Yes, like, fuck. Or when you tell yourself, like, I'll get gas in the morning, you're like, fuck.
Yeah, I'm already running late.
Yes. So.
For sure. Yeah. So I would say, just roll with the punches, take everything with a grain of salt. But I really do like how you merged like the tech and relationships, where it's like,
oh, that's a view you hadn't really seen before, right?
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't a problem that we ever have, but I know that this is important for other couples, where it's like, hey, I really want you to unfollow that person. And then you're like, I'll get to it later. They don't even hit me up anyway. It's not a big deal. And then like they will hit you up, and then it'll start an argument, So like really start preparing. Or if you have like an anxious partner and like they're like, why didn't you pick up the phone, or why didn't you answer my text message? Like if your whatever like software is not up to date, maybe like it'll glitch out and you won't hear it. You know what I mean? So there are so many ways to get ready.
I'm glad you brought that up. With the Facebook, Instagram, we don't really give a shit who we follow or don't follow, but I will say it just doesn't come from a place of controlling, but we get really like worried about one another. So we do share location, or the time, I think recently you had like a nail appointment. You were gone for a long, long time. And I really truly got to a point where I was starting to get worried. I was like, is she okay? Like, so I think I texted like, hey, I'm not telling you to come back, just checking in, making sure you're okay. So I think with us it's wholesome, but there are some relationships out there where the like partners are distrusting of their other partner, so they need to know. If you're in a relationship like that, maybe consider that relationship. We're not going to tell you what to do. So I do want to get into something spicy because you brought it up a little bit. We don't have this problem. I could give two shits of like who you follow, what you do on your social media as far as like your communication, and vice versa. But there are some couples who they're like, I need you to unfollow this person. I don't want you talking to this person. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends. Yeah, I think it depends. I actually started sort of like feeling some sort of way about someone that we both follow just because they're just very negative and we're not even friends with them to the point where I'm like, why do we follow them if
Yeah.
each of our posts just their post just like triggers us.
Yes.
But I haven't made like a decision yet if I want to do that or not, but
I think that's a little different though, because of more of like their moral stance as who they are as a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
That we can both mutually agree like they're not a great person. But I was kind of more thinking like out of like the jealousy or controlling perspective. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people who are like, this person, my partner is not allowed to do so and so, and that's where to me I'm like, ugh, it's just kind of
Yeah.
crazy to tell somebody like they're not allowed to do something.
yeah.
Like to me, that's kind of wild. But.
Yeah, I don't believe anyone should ever tell you you're allowed and not allowed to do something with your free time. You know, work
Yeah.
is like a contract and it's different, but everyone has like their different boundaries, right? So you know what's best for your relationship, but like, yeah, I know that like not everyone broke up in like a super dramatic way. Like they could still like respect each other, maybe even be friends. So as long as you know what you're doing, I don't think that someone else should tell you how to live your life. But
Yeah,
that's just me.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I knew we were going to do this episode specifically about communication and Mercury retrograde with relationships. Everybody knows my stance on like, do I think the planets affect your relationship? No. But I do think relationships are very important. I mean, they're the cornerstone of why, kind of humanity is where they are. We're very social creatures. Our humanity thriving really depends on us being able to get along. It depends on us kind of working together cohesively and collectively. So to me, I don't really need a reason for like making sure your communication is good, but I like that, with Mercury retrograde, it kind of does give pause to say like, hey, this is the time to like think about what you're saying. Don't take it too personal. Don't, kind of overthink it. I will say though, and I kind of want to go into this a little bit, I definitely think it relates, but I've also had some experiences with just some people I know closely, and I think a lot of people can relate, especially in like a romantic, established relationship. If they're having whatever type of issues they have, whether they're marital or relationship, it's very easy to say, let's go to couples counseling, right? And talk about the ultimate communication. Now, I don't want to sound off like, that's like a stupid idea. No, it's a great idea, but I did want to take this time, and now that I have a platform to say whatever I want,
There you
I
go.
thought this was a good opportunity because it's something I've wanted to say to like certain people I know, but I was like, let me just throw it out there in the universe. When it comes to couples counseling, I think that is a wonderful idea. I see nothing wrong with that. I think that is a great tool. There are some caveats though that I think first and foremost where I want to start off is like couples counseling is not a cure-all. It's not a magic fix that will save your relationship or your marriage. I think that's very important to understand that. And the reason I say that, especially when it's like a heteronormative relationship, I feel like it's kind of like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, this is my trap card. Like, especially I think the guys in the relationship will throw that as like a final card of like, and I'll be vulgar, it's like, stop your bitching, fine, we'll go to like counseling. It's like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like you're gonna go and they're gonna fix your problems. If anything, it's gonna put a spotlight on where you stand as a relationship. When you go to individual therapy or counseling, it's a little different because you're working as an individual, you're working through yourself, through your problems, through your trauma. When you go as a couple, you're a collective of like two people, two personalities, and it's important to remember like therapists and counselors, they're not miracle workers and they're not going to fix your problems. They're just not. So I do feel like sometimes some people in relationships, and again, I'm speaking from anecdotal, usually it's the guys who are very dismissive of like, I've tried everything, or they'll like fuck up, they'll do something like they'll cheat, or they'll do something they were probably not supposed to do, and they're like, okay, let's go to like, I'll go to couples counseling, like almost like you're defeated, like you win, I'll do this. So I just want to, I have more points, but let you kind of talk on that. What do you think about that aspect?
Yeah, don't go to couples counseling assuming like the therapist is going to side with me and we're going to talk about why you're the problem, like, or why you're being irrational. Like, are you ready to do that work yourself? It is a form of shadow work, and some people go and they're like, why are y'all ganging up on me? And it's like, the therapist is not ganging up on you. They're just letting you know where you're also messing up, because you know, nobody's perfect, and so you have to, you know, consider how can they improve and how can you improve.
Yeah. And so especially in this Mercury retrograde, we're talking specifically about relationships. I think that's a good first step. Again, I would never advise against it, but don't weaponize it.
Yep.
The other thing is, couples counseling is not always on hit the fan. Like, if you're like a new couple or
Newly
married, you know, it's good to do the pre-work for it, or the, you know, we call it shadow work, but it's kind of like tuning and maintenance. Like, it's really good to have sounding boards and ideas, and that's always something that's positive. And then kind of my last point to it is, like, I feel with couples counseling, again, it does tie to the idea of like, okay, fuck it, you win, I'm going to go to couples counseling. If you were going to go see, you know, an architect to design your home, you would go with some idea, some plan, something of a resemblance of like, this is why I'm here. I think when things have hit like their, you know, boiling point or their melting point, as far as like, you think it's hit the end of your relationship, so you're like, Hail Mary, your last thing is like, let's go see this couples counselor. You have to be ready to know what your ask is. You have to be ready to know why you're there. I feel like people think the counselor is going to do that work for you, and no, you really, I think it's important to have that conversation. So if your partner throws to you like, I think we need to do couples therapy, my suggestion is say, I agree. Why do we need to do it? You know, just set those expectations, go in with a game plan, and don't just go in kind of blind and expect that professional to do all the work for you.
I think there's an HBO show called Couples Counseling or Couples Therapy, where like they document a couples across like 8 weeks, and like they actually film their therapy sessions. It's really messy, and I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, we'll check it out. But yeah, when you were mentioning what we were going to talk about this week, I was like, I've had that idea, and it's a thought I've had for a while, but I was like, this is actually perfect. And it all does kind of boil down to that, like, communication. It boils down to like how you're going to be with your partner, and you know, those are just kind of my thoughts with more of the skeptical, you know, level of my input here.
Yeah, just my biggest thing is don't make any permanent moves. Roll with the punches and pick your battles during Mercury retrograde. Whether it's a relationship you already have or, you know, a new opportunity. Yeah.
What are some of the things, you know, you kind of gave your example of like that social media person who kind of came into your life. But what are some of the things that you're personally preparing for this Mercury retrograde?
I think that because it's going to happen during the holiday season.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. That's why I even said, like, gosh, the nuance with the family communication, it can almost be its own topic, right?
Yeah. I think that, you know, and we're also traveling, which is horrible during Mercury retrograde. If you listen to the Mercury retrograde episode.
This is the second time we've done a cruise during the Mercury retrograde,
and it's like the third time that we've traveled, and yeah, we don't let it stop us, but again, it's all about preparation, right? Which is why, like, when we're gonna go down for Thanksgiving, when we're gonna go for our cruise, I've been giving us a day before and after. Not only is that good practice, but just during Mercury retrograde, I'm like, I cannot afford
to fuck up.
Yeah. I also think that you need to come up with contingency plans, like, especially because this was an election year. Regardless of what side you're on, both sides are very heated, so it's like, what's your exit plan? And also, like I said, maybe not like permanent boundaries and permanent moves, but take it day by day. And it's also like, At what point do we say, you know what, we're gonna leave? Like we cannot be in this situation anymore. Like we're gonna have to talk about that. I don't think that'll be a problem, but it's still good to be prepared rather than like Thanksgiving night, something happens and then it's like, oh crap, we need to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what are your own personal boundaries, and how much bullshit are you willing to put up with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah, man, holiday times are very joyful and very cheerful, but like they're also so contentious, right?
Super stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of like the stress that I'm feeling. It's just like the gathering, the holidays, the travel. It's not ideal.
That's what the Juggalos call their when they meet up. They call it the gathering. Whoop whoop.
Oh my god. Well, woof woof, yeah. So yeah, that's what's going through my head right now, personally for us.
Okay. Oh my gosh, we live up to our stereotypes. We talked about it last week with Sagittarius. It's like you're like, yeah, fuck, I got a plan for it. You know, I got a plan for this Mercury Retrograde, and I'm kind of just like, fuck it, let's just get through it. Like, let's do it, and we'll come out on the other end.
Yeah. We always do.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're prepared, but I like to just because I know it's coming up.
Any magic that you're doing? Any candles? Any rituals? Any?
During retrograde, if I am manifesting anything, I'm very, very intentional not to monkey paw myself.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask. I know we don't manifest an eclipse. Probably take a break from manifesting during Mercury just to be safe, right?
I think it depends. You don't have to. It's not as like hard and fast as eclipses, but I would say just be more specific with your petitions.
Because you want to make that communication very clear, right?
Yeah. Like, for example, if you're trying to manifest money and, maybe you'll accidentally get money because your HR messes up and, like, doesn't deduct enough taxes, but then you end up owing back taxes type of thing. So it's, like, be very specific. Like, I want money that is sustainable, that's not going to, like, screw me over later, that is obtained through legal means. Like, just be very specific.
Be kind of lawyer it.
Yeah, exactly. Make it like an airtight contract. Yeah.
Speaking of, this is completely off tangent, but you came up recently. I was helping a friend out with a vendor show that he had, and they were like, "Hey, damn, I should ask Genesis to like give us some money oil because he did that for him last time and it worked." So I was like, "Oh yeah, that would have been a good idea." But then I was like, "Oh wait, she kind of showed me this new one." I said, she throws like coins on the floor and says money on the floor, money through the door.
Yep.
And I was like, quick, give me $1 bill. So we like threw $1 bill on the floor and we kept it. And it was good. But you just mentioned that and it reminded me. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think Mercury Retrograde, always a super fun topic. And I do like that we talked about relationships. I feel like we actually haven't done a hyper-specific episode. And, I think it's good advice. Even whether you're a believer or a skeptic, these are one of the universal truths that we can come together and understand as like communicate with your partners, communicate with your relationships, just for like a healthy and bountiful, outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do have a question, which is great. Erica over on Discord. If you haven't checked out the Discord, you can join for as little as $7 a month.
For the Discord, yeah, you're right.
And if you just want to join our Patreon, that's $4, which gives you all our fun unhinged episodes. So she put, what is your favorite Mercury retrograde rename? For example, Mercury is in the microwave. I think that's the only one I know. The only kind of variance on that is like Gatorade is in the microwave, which I think is hilarious.
Oh yeah, no, Mercury Gatorade, yeah.
Yeah. So Gatorade,
I like that one.
Yeah, Gatorade is in the microwave.
Yeah. Or like a lot of people have been like, Mercury's in the microwave, so make sure to align your chanclas.
Yes, I love that. Yes, I love these questions. Erica, thank you so much for sending in that question. It makes it really fun to read y'all's comments.
Yes, so we will release all of December's schedule a little bit later. However, the next episode is going to be another experience exchange, and this time it will be with Vanna.
Yes.
So very excited if you want to learn about working with gods and deities and how to get started, and also a little bit more about her small business. She makes amazing products that just smell good if you're a skeptic and are made, small business, awesome. But B, if you do want to work with certain deities, they're like devotional items that are also functional. Me personally, one of my favorite is the car fresheners. So now I don't buy them from like a mass produced source anymore. I help out a local creator. So yeah.
And like Genesis said when we first started our Patreon, we're never going to put knowledge behind the paywall, so all the episodes are free. However, if you do want to see her in practice and do some deity work with me, a skeptic, we have our Unhinged episode where she did some identification, and it was wonderful. I truly, truly, truly enjoyed that experience. So if you want to see that, I would say it's a not miss. Like, you really, really should check it out. Make sure to sign up for our Patreon for the even the lowest tier, like I said, the $4 one will get you exclusive access to those episodes.
Yes. So if you want to get a hold of me, if you want to book a reading, prepare for Mercury Retrograde, see if that X is meant to be, you can hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Jen Kahlo or jenkahlo.com.
Alrighty, everybody, thank you so much for engaging with our content.
Yes, thank you. Remember, the magic within you makes the world a more beautiful place. Blessed be, and signing off.
Bye.